Archetype Archive Skull Servant by Rata, rank 10 YGO. So I have gotten a lot of requests. This is a Patreon request specifically. I have gotten a lot of requests to react to rank 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! I've seen a couple of his Archetype Archives, and I've honestly loved them. As you can see with his Dark World up here, they do tend to be on the longer side, so that's usually why I haven't touched them. I haven't seen the Skull Servant video. I'm very curious to see what more support the archetype's gotten and how it kind of flows together. Without further ado, especially in the spirit of Spooktober, dive in, shall we?
Hang on. What's that in your graveyard? No, you can finish in a moment. You can finish your combo. But first, I want to look at your What is that in your graveyard?
What's happening?
I see some bones in there. I know you got... If you got bones in there and you're hiding them from me, we're going to have a problem, you and I. And I don't like it when we have problems. I'm not going to jab you. I'm not going to poke you. It's just here for show, unless, you know, unless you got something you shouldn't have. You don't have something you shouldn't have, do you? You're not trying to cheat, are you? You're trying to cheat me out of a nice, friendly game of cards. I just want to look at what's in your graveyard. I just want to see the bones. Just show me the bones.
I love this bit.
Oh, you don't have to lie to me. I'm a friend of yours. We're friends, you and I. You can tell me if you got bones hiding around, alright? Try not to lose my temper with you, but I've seen you do this 100 times before. I know you've got something in there that you don't want me to see. Maybe I'll just check the order. Maybe I'll just see what level of the monsters are in there. It's no concern of yours why I want to look at them.
Welcome to the graveyard. You would think this is where cards go when they're used up and done for, but as with most card games including this zone, it's been kind of a misnomer. Floating, reviving, and banishing have all made it so that the graveyard is less akin to a place of eternal rest that you should feel guilty about recklessly sending your monsters into, and more of a graveyard. The zombie...
I mean, this is very much, I think, a power creep and feature creep thing, where very much, you know, older Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, sending to the graveyard, there were certain things that interacted with it, absolutely, right? Removed from the game, now as is known as banished, was very much a more permanent way of dealing with that, right? Such as you could send your Blue Eyes White Dragon to the graveyard by card destruction, right? And then obviously you could maybe do something like, you know, Monster Reborn, call the Haunted to bring it back. You couldn't really touch it. We really didn't have the effects that we do nowadays, especially as a Yubel player, right? We certainly couldn't contact Fuse from our graveyard. Whew, hi, Phantom, you exist. But, like, that is very much, I feel, like a power and feature creep of the game. And we can even see this because Banished now has a... and this has been a thing for a couple years, right? A few years. Where Banished face down is a big thing. I think that's Pot of Desire specifically. I don't remember which pot card it is. But yeah, Banishing face down, or like Eater of Millions, right? Like, cards that interact with, like, banish face down cards, or at least how many you have. That is kind of the current most permanent way of removing things, because even Yubel, right, even Yubel with like Gruesome Gravescorner and stuff has ways of like getting things back from banish. I think it is the way that I view it, it is the ultimate end goal that most every zone will be used. Even in Magic the Gathering, because I play Tron, technically I can even go through my sideboard mid-game. Karn, the Great Creator, I think 4 colorless Planeswalker, right? Let me pull him up specifically. Create, because I need to remember how his text is actually worded. He's gotten a lot cheaper, actually. -2, you can choose an artifact you own from outside the game or an exile, reveal that card and put it into your hand. So hypothetically, if you're playing Kitchen Table Rose, you can hypothetically just grab a binder halfway across the room and say that one, and then throw like a Wormcoil Engine or something on board, or like a Trinisphere. But like in actual tournament setting, this would very much be I can dig into my sideboard. Yu-Gi-Oh! Hasn't hit that level quite yet, and I do kind of hope we don't ever hit that level, because I think the sideboard is very much for trying to fix certain matchups going into Game 2 and Game 3. And I think that being able to interact with that would be a very bad time for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. Anyways, but I think that the ultimate goal is going to be things will incorporate, whether it's in, you know, your graveyard, whether it's banish/exile, in Magic the Gathering's case, in the niche scenario of like Karn the Great Creator, where even you're interacting with your sideboard to be able to bring like a Trinisphere and Snaring Bridge or something into play, right? Like, I think that there's reasonable limits, but you will see as a game progresses, things like the Graveyard and Banish actually come into play a lot more like this. Things flow in and out of them a little easier.
Monster type has fittingly been known for various graveyard shenanigans over the years, especially during the Synchro era, leading to their notorious reputation for recovery and field swarming. However, while most zombie decks are combo or control oriented, using the graveyard as a second hand of sorts, there is an outlier whose playstyle centered around keeping as many of their monsters in the graveyard as possible before swinging for comical amounts of damage, made it a fan favorite pet deck for nearly 2 decades now.
Yeah.
The deck in question? Lightstorm, baby! Hit the
I was about to say Moki Moki.
nukes, Jesus! Skull Servants are a quaint little series of cards based around an absolutely ancient normal monster and a goofy OTK strategy that has gotten roughly one piece of support every 3 years since 2005. We're not dealing with a lot of cards here, and to even call Skull Servants an archetype by standard definition is a stretch, but it's my show where I do whatever I want. Catch you in the next
He's not wrong. No, them's rules. Them's rules is written.
episode where I rate the consistency of the Jungian archetype of the wise old man. Well, my granddad knows a lot of things, but he also kicks animals. The original Skull Servant is a level 1 zombie with 300 attack, 200 defense, and a swaggy purple cape. This might be the most basic and the oldest monster ever featured here, having been summoned in the original manga's first duel between Yugi and Kaiba before Blue Eyes White Dragon even hit the field.
That's actually kind of wild. I didn't even know this.
You've heard of Caveman Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, this is Hadean Yu-Gi-Oh! If we go any further back, we'll be talking about Burai. The flavor text here is surprisingly prescient, saying Skull Servant is not very strong, but presents real trouble in large numbers. That's cute, although if we were basing even more future support on old vanilla descriptions, we could see a Change Slimer train getting banned for FTK interactions. Also, as per usual with early TCG, there was a degree of freedom taken when translating the card's Japanese title, which in this case was simply white. Wow.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. That's also TCG-ism, like Frog the Jam. That's why it clarifies it's not a frog card, because I think it was Slime Toad in the OCG and JP. So, therefore, going into TCG, it being Frog the Jam was a unintended consequence. Or like Summon Skull, it's always treated as an Archfiend card because originally, I think it was... What was Summon Skull's actual original name now that I think about it? Summon Skull OG name... Demon no Shokan, Demon Summoning, Archfiend Summoning. It probably was Archfiend Summoning if I had to guess, honestly, just offhand. Anyways, it's always treated as an Archfiend card.
That name is wrong too. It's actually vaguely greenish. Skull Servant is not a confounding localization or anything, especially compared to other stuff from the time, but it does make things a bit awkward sounding in relation to the rest of their cards, as we'll see later. In addition to that, it's a fusion material for 2 monsters that have only ever been used as targets for instant fusion, and if anybody's telling you otherwise, they're either lying or are huge fans of Dissolve Rock or Battle Warrior.
Yo, don't talk smack about Dissolve Rock, okay? Look at the absolute unit, okay?
Oh, okay, fine, you got me. I do love him. I mean, how can you not? He fights with his bare hands. Overall, Skull Servant is so unexceptional that it kind of wrapped around to being particularly noteworthy. Its miserable stats made it a popular joke card in the community's early days. It's featured all over artworks of generic cards in both serious and goofy contexts, and some video games even award you a special bonus for dealing the finishing blow in a duel with Skull Servant. It's pretty cool how much attention this unassuming skeleton receives just for being exactly that. Shut up, Stuart, you didn't do shit! But nothing
What was that?
receives just for being exactly that. Shut up!
Kevin Tewart, you would almost think that somebody had observed the Cult of the Skull Servant on places like Pojo and mentioned that to Konami, but that couldn't possibly happen, could it? No, definitely not. We don't talk about the Cult of Skull Servant.
Stuart, you didn't do shit! But nothing epitomizes this underdog status quite like their first support card, and conversely most important monster, King of the Skull Servants. You see what I mean when I say the name doesn't really sound right like this? Being a quote-unquote king of servants implies he's just presiding over all the other subordinates while still being one himself. What, is he just—
No, he's just Nito. He's just first of the dead.
chief of the cleaning staff at Vampire Kingdom? It's a level 1 with question mark attack and 0 defense, and the original attack of this card is the combined number of King of the Skull Servants and Skull Servant in your graveyard times 1000. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish one other King of the Skull Servants or one Skull Servant from your graveyard, special summon this card.
I feel like if we wanted to add a non-unique rule, like, you know how like you'll have games and have like a like you can play as many copies of a card as you want. I feel like Skull Servant could very much be a card where like just because it's so wild, right? Like you could play more than 3 copies, right? Like because in Naruto it was non-unique, where you could play as many as many Samurai Warrior. as you wanted in a deck, right? And that was the point. Like it was effectively like, you know, a horde deck, right? I think Magic might have an equivalent. I don't know offhand. Point being, you can break a number of copies in a deck. I think it'd be really funny to just allow you to play like 40 Skull Servant in a deck. I think that'd be funny.
Release, this was a tricky but fun novelty involving filling up the graveyard so that you can normal summon a level 1 with up to 5,000 attack. Today, this is a tricky but fun novelty involving filling up the graveyard so that you can normal summon a level 1 with up to 23,000 attack.
Wait, what's different?
Yeah, nearly 20 years later, and the appeal in King of the Skull Servant still lies in dropping a tiny monster with a comically bloated stat line and then hoping to swing for some stupid damage. It is pretty funny that due to the way their support works by copying the Skull Servant name in the graveyard, each new monster means 3,000 more attack to King in addition to all their actual effects. He's also got a piece of battle recursion, which I would have preferred with any other condition, because who is running over this? Big Inflate Dragon? There are ways to play Skull Servants without focusing on King, but to me, doing that comes off like playing Grand Maju for the rank 3 potential. I don't care for the extra deck, I'm here to smoke crack.
I mean, yeah, that is Grand Maju players from what I understand. As somebody who definitely wants to play Grand Maju in some capacity.
Naturally, your game plan revolves around packing the graveyard before summoning King, which becomes marginally easier with each piece of support, although still relying heavily on outside engines, especially for discarding. Run 3 King and hope to never see a magic cylinder in your life. A few years later came the Lady in White.
King of the Skull Servant, swing for 2,300, or sorry, 23,000. Do you understand that my name is Yubel? There is Nightmare Pain on board. That is the world's strongest, just, I punch myself. Oh, God. I'm such a filthy Yubel player.
I guess I could believe that dress used to be white when she first sat on that chair 1,000 years ago. She's a level 3 with 0 attack and 2,200 defense, and says face up level 3 or lower zombie monsters on the field, except the Lady in White, cannot be destroyed by battle, also they are unaffected by spell and trap cards and effects. This card's name becomes Skull Servant while it's in the graveyard.
So when are we getting like a gold Sark, or like, you know how gold Sarcophagus retrained cards like Dark Magician Girl, Silent Magician, right? When do we just get a retrain of Skull Servant that like is other thing? This card is treated as Skull Servant when on the field, and it has like just like battle protection, like effect protection, but this card's like attack and defense cannot be modified or something like that. Just once again, just vomit Skull Servant on board.
Name sharing is a common effect with all future supports, so I'm gonna stop pointing it out after this card. But don't forget about it, or King of the Skull Servants is getting turned into bone meal. This was their first piece of protection, and it's a bit flimsy. Again, battle protection in this archetype is kind of a joke, but complete immunity from spells and traps is pretty decent.
I'm sorry, that's also on a level 3 with 2,200. That's a 2,200 booty. Wow, she thick.
Especially with this having been made in 2008, with a lot of battle traps still going around. Unfortunately, this only applies while the card is on the field, whereas you'd much prefer for it to be in the graveyard, because look at it! Any more spiders on her and she could be an insect field spell. Having one on board alongside King doesn't hurt, although it rarely happens, and even more rarely provides relevant protection. However, you do run 3 of these due to the way the deck works, so just don't draw into all 3 of them, I guess. Remember to shuffle well! Next up is Whitemare. You would think the name is referring to the Beast of Darkness in the back, but the real Whitemare is that bowl-cut mustache combo. Ugh, can't escape the aristocracy even in the afterlife. It's a level 1 with 300 attack and 200 defense, and you can discard it to activate one of the following effects. Target one of your banished Skull Servant or Whitemare, return it to the graveyard, or target one of your banished the Lady in White or King of the Skull Servants, special summon it.
See, this is what we talk about with feature creep, right? Like, you look at King of the Skull Servants, and now you go to Whitemare, where target one of your banished Skull Servant or Whitemare, return to the graveyard. Hence why I said, like, face down banish is kind of the new, like, permanent removal, at least as of right now. And then, you know, you could, once again, you're targeting things from your banish pile, where remove from game / banish used to be a lot more permanent, right? This is the feature creep we talk about.
This is a weirdly modular recovery effect, but it does make a good amount of sense. Back then, you were likely banishing stuff with Allure of Darkness, Mizuki, maybe King's Recursion effect, or even Chaos monsters. Were Chaos Skull Servants a thing back then, like with
They probably were. I mean, Chaos was kind of ran in everything.
Swords or something? I don't know what people played back in 2010. I was watching Iron Man 2 at the mall with a classmate who had a weird last name that had us calling him the Cum Shot. Over time, the deck's playstyle has received more pieces of archetypal banishing, which only made the effect better, as the cards it returns to the graveyard are ones you would prefer to stay there, while the ones it summons are intended for the field. Don't run too many of these, but definitely keep it in mind. Around that same time, we also got Tri-White, which special summons 3 level 2 or lower normal monsters from your graveyard. Nothing that's good in Ojamas can be good in Skull Servants, so we're just gonna kick this one back into the grave. White Prince is a level 1 with 0 attack and defense, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 Skull Servant and 1 The Lady in White from your hand and or deck to the graveyard. You can banish 2 Skull Servants and discard from your graveyard, special summon 1 King of the Skull Servants from your deck. Although keeping it...
And become Skull Servant while in the graveyard, feeding you to King of the Skull Servant. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting way to get to your boss monster. I think it's really cute.
In line with the odd specifications, King receives an immediate 3000 attack boost if you dump this guy by any means and let him drag his mom and dad out on a trip to the McBonals. It also lets you sacrifice that boost to fetch a King directly from the deck in case you haven't been able to put one on board, which is where White Mare's first effect comes in handy. In most other graveyard-centric archetypes, this would be ridiculous setup potential, but it's Skull Servants, so the line of reasoning is that a little attack points never hurt anyone, so let them dump all they want.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Let me finish that.
Easily one of
you're gonna regret that. And that's the thing. That's the balancing thing, right? Like Sky Striker Engage. Can you imagine Sky Striker Engage in something like Branded or Yubel, right? Or even like, dare I say, something like oh God, what was the other? What was Snake Eyes, right? Like, or like a Poplar in like Snake Eyes Poplar in like anything else, right? Like. This is why cards like Reinforcement of the Army and like Bonfire are at 1, whereas if you had like a Reinforcement of the Army that you could use multiple times per turn that targeted reptile monsters, current reptile monsters, because we don't really have anything that like breaks the game right yet. Like no one cares, right? It's like why Bonfire is kind of fair in a vacuum, and I say this in a vacuum, right? Before you get archetypes like Snake Eyes, right? Where like, yeah. You could have a baller effect, but if it's tied to a Dogwater archetype or a Dogwater deck, yeah, then that's fine. Then it helps level it out a little bit, right? Like, yeah, go have a Sky Striker Engage that you can activate multiple times a turn, right? If it targets, like Skull Servants, right? Sure, awesome, right? And you're preventing it from being used in other, like, zombie decks, right? Like, it comes down to poking and prodding, cost versus benefit, right? Like, you can have good things, but they have to have restrictions on them. When we get good things that don't really have restrictions on them, that's where we get things like Reinforcement of the Army. That's where we get things like Bonfire. That's where and yes, it does have restrictions, I'm aware, right? But I'm talking about more generalized support, right? This is where you get SP Little Knight. This is where you get Firewall Dragon. This is where you get insert card that is super hyper generalized and on the ban list, right? Like, that's the balancing act games have to consider, and Yu-Gi-Oh does have to consider this because aside from the ban list, they in the advanced format specifically, I know Genesis exists now, but in the advanced format, this is how the game functions. It's an eternal format minus whatever's on the ban list, right?
The best cards in the deck. White Princess is a level 3 light monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can send 1 White Prince from your deck to the graveyard. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard. All monsters currently on the field lose attack and defense equal to their own level or rank times 300 until the end of this turn. Accentuating that Prince was the deck's most versatile card at that point, Princess lets you directly send it on summon without doing anything else on the field, which is what I assume to be the reason for her being their only monster with a decent amount of original attack. That said, the deck has gotten better ways of dumping White Prince that don't take up your normal summon, but it's still appreciated to have. In addition to being an on-demand way to put a Skull Servant body in the graveyard, the second effect can make OTKs easier by axing the attack values of opponent's monsters by a couple thousand while King loses a mere 300. While I would prefer some kind of limiter removal-esque effect for even more ridiculous attack values, maybe a calcium infusion spell, giving an extra bit of
I do think that this is actually a really good design because I like looking at how like Yubel was designed, right? How Yubel was reverse engineered for the modern support, Might Nightmare Pain, Nightmare Throne, Spirit, Phantom, right? Like, so looking at this, right? Skull Servant is just a Skull Servant for all intents and purposes. Yeah, you have, princes and princesses, you have King of the Skull Servants, right? White Mare, you have a bunch of other things, and like clearly this is referencing obviously nobility, right? But Skull Servant himself is a level 1 normal monster. Sorry, level 3 normal monster? I think it's 1 or 3, I can't remember offhand. Level 1 normal monster, right? He is just a Skull Servant, right? So I think that when we talk about, like, I know a lot of people like to complain about Konami, and there's definitely valid reasons to complain about it, right? But when they do things like this, and you look at, like, how they take an archetype, or how they take a specific set, card or cards, right? And they kind of work with it, and kind of retain the original identity versus, what they could do is they could just, just throw it in a deck, make it work, right? Like, I think it's really interesting. I think the interplay here is very interesting. Keeping Skull Servant, sure, as iconic as he is just a Skull Servant, and a White Prince, White Princess, being able to have these, because your name becomes Skull Servant, even some battle protection effects, being able to weaken the attack and defense of your opponent's monsters, right? It's very, very cool to see that he is just kept as a humble Skull Servant when you have, entering, nobility, nightmare creatures, etc., right? That's why Yubel, right? Yubel Terra Incarnate, and Yubel Ultimate Nightmare, right, retain as themselves, right? You have the Spirit of Yubel. You have the Phantom of Yubel. You have Yubel Loving Defender Forever as the upgrade, which plays into Super Poly plays, right? Like, I think it's really cool to see how intricately they weave some of these archetypes, newer support in, with the existing archetype and existing cards. I think it's really cool to look and see what they do with these.
Stat manipulation is nice, as OTKs can occasionally be just out of reach. For what it's worth, she's also a light monster in case you really had that Chaos variant in mind, so it's a neat card that you don't really need to run at more than 2.
Children, here's some souls for dessert. Watch for the Tenpai player once they're rotten.
After that, we have what's likely one of the most delightful card arts of all time.
Amazing.
White Baking. Enough about all that one-turn kill. All I need is one-turned grill. It's got the usual Skull Servant stats, and if a level 3 or lower zombie monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can discard this card instead. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 2 monsters with different names from your deck to your hand except White Baking that are either Skull Servant or mention it, then discard 1 card. You can only use this effect of White Baking once per turn.
Oh my god, I love it. It's perfect. It's everything I've ever needed.
Protection effect is pretty solid, being a non-once per turn hand trap and putting a name into the graveyard, although I would have preferred if it also prevented targeting. However,
Yeah.
I'd often much rather remove this guy from my hand ASAP, because the floating is one of the best archetypal search effects I've ever seen, giving you 2 monsters and a discard, which again would be ban-worthy in a better deck.
Yeah.
Discard engines were already valuable to Skull Servants, but White Baking makes them— White Baking makes them basically imperative and really ups the deck's consistency a ton. This makes it the only Yu-Gi-Oh card that can simultaneously search 2 monsters and bake 2 potatoes, which is why you always run 3. And finally, I say as if we've spent a lot of time here, there's White Lord. It's another light monster with Skull Servant stats, and you can only use each of the following effects of White Lord once per turn. If you have Skull Servant or King of the Skull Servants in your graveyard, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard. Send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard, up to the number of Skull Servant and King of the Skull Servants in your graveyard. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Skull Servant or King of the Skull Servants in your graveyard. Special summon it. From the graveyard! The blatant Lightstorm teaming is not a coincidence, because this guy regularly lets you mill at least 7 cards, but also revives anything from the archetype in the same effect. Not only does this offer the deck unprecedented setup while being searchable and free to discard, but it also lets you run generic zombie world support and a bunch of handy floaters.
Right.
King is also most likely gonna be among the cards in your graveyard, so you don't need to worry about wasting a normal summon or draining his attack with Prince. I'm content calling this the deck's most effective playmaker, as you no longer have to rely on running 60 cards and drawing into grass first turn to mill a bunch of shit, and the only
Yeah, I mean, I would say that adds a lot of consistency.
complaint I have is directed at the TCG for not naming the card Whitethorn. It was white there!
This is the kind of shit white people pay for.
Grading Skull Servants is a bit of a spooky endeavor. For consistency, they're highly dependent on generic stuff like Unizombie, the Horus Engine, or really any kind of discard enabler. They can actually land on an 8000 plus attack king fairly often if we also account for that stuff, but they don't have many archetypal ways to kickstart their combos. I'd say this is a 3. Power is a funny one. If we're strictly talking max damage, this is like a 6. King frequently hits the field with at least 11,000 attack, you can have multiples of them out, and if you really go bones deep, you can even hit the elusive 20k. But that's it. No removal effects, no other beaters, it's king or nothing. Where's your
Right.
crown? Let's just say this is a 5, but with so many footnotes. Talking about recovery, with a deck that aims to go all out in one turn such as this one, usually just means referring to their graveyard extenders, but Skull Servants can theoretically bounce back to where they want to be pretty easily in case they whiff the initial swing. Just banish a White Lord or White Prince and you're back in the game. All you need is a filled graveyard, no extensive field setup or anything. Again, it's good, but exclusively in favor of one monster, which is why it would feel weird to give it the same grade as something that clearly has a lot more going on. This is a 3,
Yeah.
but in a different color. My grading process has so much integrity. Protection exists in the form of Lady and White Baking.
I mean, honestly, it makes a lot of sense, though, right? Like, it's saying that a movie is like a 8 out of 10, but you're like, but you rated this other movie an 8 out of 10, and it's like, it's an 8 out of 10 for different reasons. Like, so I would judge a comedy differently than I would judge an action movie, differently than I would judge like a military drama, right? Like, you judge these by different standards, right? So I don't know, like a 10 out of 10 military drama movie is not necessarily equatable to a 10 out of 10 romantic comedy, to a 10 out of 10 like superhero action movie, right? Like, you have to figure out what it's playing with. What it's playing with, sure, its recovery is, a 3 out of 5, right? But it's not necessarily equatable to other 3 out of 5s. I get where he's going with this.
Neither a particularly bad form of it, even though one is rarely on the field for it to apply, and the latter usually gets discarded for the search. This is like a normal 2. Lastly, Skull Servant's versatility is an interesting point, because while the deck does exactly one thing on its own, it does it in such a way that it can be splashed with a handful of other decks for some fun variants. Lightsorn, Zombie Synchro, or Horus all gel pretty comfortably with the amount of floating and graveyard setup involved, so while the deck has a very linear game plan, it's just flexible enough for a bit of build variety. That's a 2. Here's a mostly pure deck list with things to help them hit the graveyard and have a bit more field presence.
Ah, yes, the Horus cards. Yeah, I need to pick up my set at some point.
Not gonna lie, the Link Kuriboh ban was rough for this extra deck, but what do? You could also use them with Tear Laments, but just the thought of it makes my stomach turn, so I personally won't. What a weird, cute little series. On all accounts, Skull Servants have remained as much of a gimmick deck as they used to be, but the gimmick in question is so over the top that you can hardly fault people for sticking with it. Everybody loves funny skeletons, that's just a fact of life, so it makes you wonder if the deck would have ever gotten off the ground if it was instead based on, like, Caterpillar. No other archetype has really gotten the IV drip support treatment the way Skull Servants have, which is what makes it so interesting whenever they do get their singular new card in each era of the game that lets them keep up just a little bit more. At this point, it would almost be weird if they got a full support wave, although I guess I could see it with a sprinkling of back row, or maybe a Skulldog Maron retrain. But right now, it's a simple and fun deck with just enough of a unique spin to stay fresh whenever it reappears. Because no matter how you do it, everyone loves seeing a huge boner. I had to do it once.
Well, hey everyone, it's the channeled spirit of Ojamaline here. I'd just like to say that, well, wow, first I'd like to say these robes are kind of stylish. I've always been
Not
mostly
Ojamaline!
naked, for most of my time, so having this much of my body covered up is kind of
Weird.
making me feel a certain way. Anyway, I just wanted to wish you all a happy new year and the other holidays. And I just wanted to reassure everyone that even though I'm dead,
This sucks.
even though I'm dead,
I wanna go home.
even though I'm dead, I'll probably be back within a couple turns or so. I mean, you know how this game, why are you hitting me?
We were supposed to go to Skeleton World.
Is this not Skeleton World? Look at this place.
This is Skeleton Land, Dad. I hate you. I wanna go live with Mom.
Damn, this got real quick.
Son, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think your mom's dead.
Yeah, so are you.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's it. I'm running away from home.
Gotta hit us with the
kid. You're
Ojama
lucky
Lime
to
is
find it.
dead. How could you?
the worms. Son?
Hey, Dad.
What a wild video. It's been a while since I've seen a Rata video. And honestly, yeah, like I've loved it. I've loved a lot of the archetype videos he's done. I was planning on watching his Cyber Dragon video at one point, just because I actually really love how beat sticky the archetype is. Infinity being one of my favorite cards in the game. Probably second. I think Exciton Knight takes that as my favorite Ixie in the game. But as I said, a lot of the archetype videos end up being really long, and I'm already running into issues with regularly doing 2-hour videos as is. So I've been trying to kind of condense things a little bit. But this is honestly great. If you're looking for some Yu-Gi-Oh comedy, if you're looking for some ability to learn an archetype or something like that, honestly, definitely give them a watch. Links, as always, will be in the description. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.